कृष्णाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणी हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगे राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna. So, welcome to the Srimad Bhagavatam Thematic Series IV. We are in the Narad Vyas Samvad, and today we are entering into the last chapter of the Narad Vyas Samvad. This is chapter number 5. The main is actually, if you see the fifth chapter, Narad's instruction to Vyas on Srimad Bhagavatam. The fourth was like a prelude where how Vyas, after he compiles all the Vedic literature, still he is dissatisfied, and Narad arrives. In the sixth chapter, after hearing the perfection of Narad Muni, his previous life, his spiritual master, his disciple, Vyasdev, he is inquisitive and he will ask further questions. And how further Narad attained perfection will be discussed also this in this chapter. And then Narad will, after giving his own example, then he will further conclude his instructions to Vyas, and then Narad will leave. So in this chapter again, Narad attaining perfection is also very important for us. So let's go into the first section. Narada inquires into Vyasdev inquires into Narada. Unto it should be. Into, nahi? Unto Narada, or into also is okay. Shri Suta Uvacha Evam Nishamya Bhagavan Devarishir Janma Karma Cha Bhuya Prapachata Tam Brahman Vyasa Satyavati Sutaha. Suta said, now the conversation is happening between Narad and Vyas, and it goes back to Suta and Saunak. So Suta speaks, O Brahmana, Shaunaka, Brahman. Actually, it is Brahman, it is Bahuvachan. Prabhupada in the word-to-word translation makes it clear. If you want, you can have a look here. 1:6. Yeah. So, O Brahmanas, because there are, along with Sud, there are many others also who are hearing this conversation. So, the powerful Vyas, Bhagavan Vyas, the son of Satyavati Suta, after hearing about Evam Nishamya, Nara's birth and activities, Devarishi Janma Karmacha, again asked him questions. Bhuya Tam Prapacha. So he asked him questions. Prabhupada. Vyasdev was further inquisitive to know about the perfection of Naraji, and therefore he wanted to know about him more and more. In this chapter, Naraji will describe how he was able to have a brief audience with the Lord while he was absorbed in the transcendental thought of separation from the Lord, and when it was very painful for him. So the Lord giving darshan to Narad in his previous life as a son of maidservant. That incident is uh, mentioned in this chapter. This is a very important chapter, that's why. Vishwanath Chakra Thakur. In the sixth chapter, Narad describes how he went to the forest to see the Lord and hearing his words later received a spiritual body. Okay, text 2. Vyasa Uvacha. So Vas spoke, asked questions. So now the conversation goes back to Vyasa and Narada. Bibhukshur vipravasite विज्ञानादृष्टभिस्तव वर्तमानो वयसस्याद्ये ततः किम अकरोत् भवान्. So this is the first question. Vyas said, when the mendicants, Bibhukshur, who had taught you that knowledge, tava vijnana a drishtibhi, departed vipravasate, being of young age, vartamana vayase ade, what did you do? Tata kim akarod bhavan. So the question is, what did you do when these Bhakti Vedantas instructed you and they left? So this is one question Vyas put forth here in this, and it will be answered from verses 6 to 25. Then the next, okay, Prabhupada's purport. Vyasdev himself was a disciple of Naraji, and therefore it was natural to be anxious to hear what Narad did after initiation from the spiritual masters. He wanted to follow in Narad's footsteps in order to attain the same perfect stage of life. The desire to inquire from the spiritual master is an essential factor to the progressive path. This process is technically known as Sadharma Pracha. So, among the limbs of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, the first 10 limbs are the most important do's, and the next 10 are the most important don'ts. So, in the first 10 most important do's is Ado Guru Padashraya and Diksha Shikshadinam, Vishrambena Guru Seva, serving very affectionately the spiritual master. And then Sadharma Pricha will come. Sadharma Pricha means to inquire from the spiritual master. So this is one of the most important limbs, and Vyas is now inquiring from his spiritual master. Okay, commentary by Vishwanath Chandra Thakur. Vipravasate means departing from there. Again, this is something to do with Sanskrit. Samprasharana is a poetic license. Since I am a disciple, I desire to know. Therefore, I am asking. Okay, text 3. Further questions. Swayambhu kaya vritya vartitam te param vaya katam chedam udasrakshi kale prapte kalevaram. Son of Brahma, Swayambhu, how did you spend kaya vritti vartitam te, the rest of your life? Paramvaya, in what manner, Katam, did you give up Uda Shakshi, that body as a son of maidservant, Idam Kalevaram, at the time of death, Kale Prapte? So here there are two questions. One is, how did you spend the rest of your life? And how did you give up that body as a son of maidservant at the time of death? So these are the second and the third questions. Now the fourth question will come in the next verse. Let's see the commentary. Shri Narad Muni in his previous life was just an ordinary maid servant son. So he became so perfectly transformed into a so how he became so perfectly transformed into a spiritual body of eternal life, bliss and knowledge is certainly important. Shri Vyasadeva desired him to disclose the facts for everyone's satisfaction. Vishnu Chakra. Idam Kalevaram, this body refers to the body born from the maid servant. So Idam means this body. How did he give up that body? Okay, text 4. Now, text 4, he will ask another question. Another question is, how do you remember some event which had happened in the previous kalpa of Brahma? We don't remember, in our previous birth. This is previous day of Brahma and previous body. How do you remember? प्राक्कल्पविषयामेतां स्मृतिं ते मुनिसत्तम न हि एष व्यददात् काल एष सर्व निराकृति. Time, kala destroys everything. Esha sarva nirakriti. Akriti means it has form, and sarva nirakriti, it makes, you lose your forms. That is what time does. How did time not destroy? Nahi asya vedadat, your memories, etam te smritim, from some previous day of Brahma, prapa kalpa vishayam. So how your memory is still intact? Prabhupada's purport is brilliant. As spirit soul is not annihilated even after the annihilation of the material body, so also spiritual consciousness is not annihilated. So whatever spiritual consciousness we have cultivated, purva abhyasena teneva riyate avashopisa jigyasurapi yogasya shabda brahma ati vartate. Shabda brahma ati vartate. Shinara developed the spiritual consciousness even when he had his material body in the previous kalpa. Consciousness of the material body means spiritual consciousness expressed to the medium of the material body. This consciousness is inferior, destructible, and perverted. But super consciousness of the supra mind in the spiritual plane is as good as the spirit soul and is never annihilated. Vishwanath Thakur. Na Vedadat means did not separate, but the implication is time did not separate your from the memory and did not destroy the memory. Vedadat without the augment is a poetic license. Vedadat is there. Nirakriti means destruction. So now from text 5 onwards till 20, Narad is going to answer specifically questions 1 and 2. That how did he spend his time after the Bhaktivedantas left, and how did he pass his life after initiation, and how he attained a body and how his memory is intact. That will come up further. So let's see from 5 to 5 to 29. Okay, any questions you have up till now? Which up till now what we have discussed? I hope it is clear up till now at least. Okay, so we will take up now the next set of verses 5 to 20. Hopefully, we'll try to finish as much as possible because there's no much philosophy. Only the few verses where the transformation is there it is very, very relevant. नारदुवाच बिभुक्षुर्विप्रवसते विज्ञानादृष्टिभिर्मम वर्तमानो वयस्याद्ये ततः एतद् akarsham. Narada said, when the mendicant teachers, Bibhukshu, who had given me knowledge, Vigyan Adrishtibir Mama, left Vipra Vasite. Even though I was of young age, Vartamano Vayasyade, I did as they instructed. Tata etad akarasam. Akarasham. Akarasham means to follow as they had told me. Prabhupada. In his previous life, when Naradji was impregnated with spiritual knowledge by the grace of the great sages, there was a tangible change in his life, although he was only a boy of 5 years. This is an important symptom visible after initiation by a bona fide spiritual master. Actual association of devotees brings about a quick change in life for spiritual realization. And we have all experience when we come in touch with ISKCON, come in touch with devotees, and especially initiation, it brings a tangible change in our life. We have no inclination for material, activities of sense gratification, especially, and we start following the regulative principles. So that was the change. How it so acted upon the previous life of Sri Narad Muni is described by and by in this chapter. So how step by step he will explain. The verb form akarsham is for meter. Okay, that's it. Again, it is based on some Sanskrit rule. Okay. Narad Muni further. एकात्मजा मे जननी योषिन्मूढा च किङ्करी मय्यात्मजे अनन्यगतो चक्रे स्नेहानुबन्धनम्. My mother, May Janani, a woman, Yoshid, uneducated, Muda, a menial servant, Kinkari, had only me as a son, Ek Atmaja. She therefore had great affection. Sneha Anubandhanam Chakre. For me, Maya Atmaje, her only shelter. Ananyagato. Proper, there is no purport. She had only one son, myself. Ek Atmaja. Saswatantra न कल्पसिद् कल्पासिद् योगक्षेमं ममेच्छति ईशस्य हि वशे लोको योषाधारो मयि यता. Because she was dependent, सा अस्वतंत्र. She was aswatantra. Though she wanted to protect me, yogakshemam mama ichchati, she could not do so. Na kalpa asid, just as a puppet master controls a female puppet. Yosha darumai yatha, the Lord controls all people. Ishasya hi vashe loke. Vishnu Chakatakur. Because she was dependent on others, she could not, na kalpa, protect me. Now his situation, Narad. Aham cha tad brahma kule ushivamstad apekshaya digdesha kala bhalaka panchahayane. Only 5 years old, Balaka Panchahayane, inexperienced, Ayutpanna, with time, place, and direction. Digdeshakala, I lived. Aham Ushivan. Live means Ushivan, means to live. In a Brahmana's house, Tad Brahma Kule, with the belief that she would never leave me. Tad Upekshaya. Vishnu Thakur. Tad Apekshaya means with the expectation that she would not give me up. So it is having this expectation, and Krishna, sometimes takes away that so that we can helplessly depend on him and grow and mature in our spiritual life. So that's why what happens in the life of Narad Muni, if you see, uh, devotees might go through that kind of experiences, and Krishna is individual, and what is best required for the devotee, Krishna arranges that. But in general, devotees go through this kind of experiences, and Narad Muni in his previous life is going through that. एकदा निर्गतां गेहात् दुहितं निशिगां पति सर्पो अदशत् पदा स्पृष्ट कृपणं कालचोदित. Ekada, one time, a snake, Sarpa, impelled by time, Kalachodita, touched by her foot, Padasprishta, bit, Adashat, my poor mother, Kripana, who had gone from the house. Nirgatam Geha, to milk the cow. Gam Duhitam, at night Nishi, and was walking along the path. So she had gone to milk the cow, and while coming, she put her foot, and it was a snake, and the snake bit, and she left the world. Now, Prabhupada's purport is very insightful. This is a way of dragging a sincere soul nearer to God. So, because Narad Muni, as the son of maid servant, had developed love for the God, for the Lord, now the Lord wanted him back, and he saw that this was an obstacle. His mother was an obstacle. Snehanubandhat. So Krishna, out of his love, cut that obstacle. But when Krishna cuts the obstacle, it doesn't mean that, her mother will not attain a auspicious destination. Because it is Krishna's plan, she will also, uh, have a very auspicious destination, because ultimately those who are born in devotees' families, they get all the benefits. We know that, right? So, but this is how Krishna acts, you know. Sometimes we know, especially in Hindi movies, of course, I don't like to mention, but it is relevant here, and that's why I'm just making a point. When the hero and the heroine is there, and the heroine wants to come to meet the hero, and the villain comes between, and then the hero smashes the villain, and ultimately they unite. So similarly, Krishna is our real hero, and the Jiva is Prakriti. It's lover, and whatever comes in between, Krishna, you know, by his inconceivable, invincible power, he takes all these obstacles away from that devotee. So this is how a sincere soul is dragged. The poor boy was being looked after only by his affectionate mother, and yet the matter was taken from the world by the supreme will in order to put him completely at the mercy of the Lord. So this was the reason to put him completely under the mercy of the Lord. Vishnu Chakatakur. Duhitam means to milk. That's it. Tada tad ahamishasya bhaktanam sham abhipsitah anugraham manyamanah pratishtam disham uttaram. Considering tada manyamana that her death tad was a mercy of the Lord. Ishasya anugraham. So just imagine a 5-year-old boy, such a incident, his only shelter, his only protection that was taken away. And because he was impregnated with this transcendental knowledge of by the Bhakti Vedantas, and he had attained a very exalted state, even at the age of 5, he could realize that this was a mercy of the Lord. Ishasya Anugram, which is who is concerned for the welfare of his devotees, Bhaktanam Shamya Abhipsita. I departed immediately, Pratishtam for the north, Disham Uttaram. So we know that when one wants to get enlightened, he has to go towards the north. And the north represents the Himalayas. So we go towards the Himalayas to get enlightened. Prabhupada. Confidential devotees of the Lord see in every step a benedictory direction of the Lord. So who understands this? Confidential devotees, Prabhupada is saying. What is considered to be an odd or a difficult moment in a mundane sense is accepted as a special mercy of the Lord. Mundane prosperity is a kind of material fever, and by the grace of the Lord, the temperature of this material fever is gradually diminished and spiritual health is obtained step by step. Mundane people misunderstand it. So when these kinds of events happen to devotees, they think, oh, see what an inauspicious thing has happened to the devotee. But actually, they don't understand the inner workings of the Lord. It's only the confidential devotees who understand it. Vishnu Chakatakur. Considering the death of my mother, Tat, as the mercy of the Lord, I departed, Pratishtam, to the north. He did so without performing her funeral rites. So even he did not perform her funeral rites. Now, as he is moving towards the north, what happens? Where all he passes through? Spitan janapadam statra puragrama vrajakaran Khetakarvatavatischa Vanani Upavanani cha. I passed through large populated area, Janapadan, capitals, Pura, Brahmana villages, Grama, cowherd villages, Vraja, mines, Akaran, farms, Kheti, in Hindi we say, villages on the mountainside, Karvata, gardens of flowers, Vatikas we are called, no? And beetle wild groves and plantations. Vanani upavanani cha. Prabhupada. Man's activities in agriculture, mining, farming, industries, gardening, etc. were all on the same scale as they are now, even previous to the present creation. And same activities will remain as they are even in the next creation. So it's the same thing. Don't think that in the next creation something new is going to happen. The same creation will be there, the same activities will be there. After many hundreds and millions of years, once creation is started by the law of nature and the history of the universe repeats itself practically in the same way. So one of proper disciple was telling me just a statement which we should take it seriously. You have got this particular body, particular structure, particular look, and if you don't take this chance, in the next kalpa, he was telling, that is next day of Brahma, again you will get the same particular type of body, same particular activities you are going to do. So that's why we have to change our, you know, we have to purify our subtle body and gross body and then make ourselves ready for developing a spiritual body. Otherwise, the same activities will continue. The mundane wranglers waste time with archaeological excavations without searching into the vital necessities of life. After getting an impetus in spiritual life, Sri Narad Muni, even though a mere child, did not waste time for a single moment with economic development, although he passed towns and villages and mines and industries. He continually went on progressive spiritual emancipation. Srimad Bhagavatam is a repetition of history which happened some hundreds and millions of years ago. And it is said herein only the most important factors of history are picked up to be recorded in this transcendental literature. So, Srimad Bhagavatam is nothing but the history of activities of what happens in a day of Brahma, in one day of Brahma. And again, the next day, the same activities, the 14 Manus rule, the incarnations come. So, like that, it carries on. And within that day of Brahma, select histories which are specifically for self-realization and developing our pure devotional service are recorded in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Vishnu Chakradakar. Four verses are connected together with the following general structure. Leaving behind the inhabited areas, I continued walking and saw a large forest. Pura means capital cities. According to Bhrigu, that place, Yatra, where Brahmanas and their servants live, Viprascha Vipra Bhratyascha Vasanti, is called Grama. Sa tu Grama iti prokta. It also refers to the living place of Shudra. Shudra nam Vasa evacha. So this is the definition of a Grama. Vraja means cow sheds. Akaran means mines from which jewels are dug. Kheta means farming village. Karvata means village on the side of the mountains. Or Bhrigu says, when villages and towns, yatra tu grama nagaram, situated on rivers or mountains, nadi, giri, samashayam, become mixed together, eketa sitam, mishram tu, as one, it is called karvata, karvatam nama. Vati means garden of flowers and beetles. Vanani refers to groups of trees growing together by themselves. Upavanani refers to groups of trees which were planted. So that's the difference. 12 and 13. I'll just read the translation. Passing by Atiyato Aham, mountains, Adrin, colored with gold and silver, Chitra Dhatu Vichitra, trees with branches, Bhujadrumam, broken by elephants, Ibhyabhagna, pools, Jalashayan, with fresh water, Shiva Jalan, and lakes used by the Devtas, Nalina Sura Sevita, beautified by bees wandering about, Vibhramat, Brahmara Shriya, awakened by the sound of birds, Chitra Swane, Patra Rater, all alone, Eka Eva, I saw Aham Draksham, a huge, Mahat, repulsive, Ghoram, fearsome, Pratibhayakarams, forest, Vipinnam, dense with reeds, canes, clumps of sara, grass. Okay, someone has gone down. Yeah. Reeds, canes, clumps, and saragrass, Nalavenu sarastamba, Kusha grass and hollow bamboo, Kusha kichaka Gavaram. Gavaram means a very deep forest, which was a playground of snakes, owls, and jackals. Vyala Uluka Shiva Jiram. Now, seeing this, description, you can understand, um, how horrifying it would be because, the description is Ghoram. The forest was very, very fearful. And what did he see there? He saw what? Snakes, owls, jackals. But still, Narad Muni was not fearful. Do you know what is the reason? Anyone? Raise your hands. Why Narad Muni was still not fearful seeing all these fearful, fearsome animals? Yes, Sridhama Charan Prabhuji.
Because he was in Nadamuni was in soul level, Atmastar.
Yes, Narad Muni had attained prema. Being intoxicated by prema, he he did not pay much attention to this. He was out, bhayam dvitiya abhinivesha. There was no fear because his consciousness was not absorbed in the material world. You know, he was completely on a different platform. Prabhupada. Here, Prabhupada, that's why he's speaking about sannyasis. It is the duty of a mendicant, parivrajakacharya, to experience all varieties of God's creation by traveling alone through all forest, hills, towns, villages, etc. First, to gain faith in God first, and strength of mind, as well as to enlighten the inhabitants with the message of God. So, three reasons Prabhupada mentions. This is the duty of a sannyasi to gain faith in God, strength of mind, and to enlighten inhabitants with the message of God. A sannyasi is duty bound to take all this risk without fear. And the most typical sannyasi of the present age is Lord Chaitanya, who traveled in the same manner through the central Indian jungles, enlightening even tigers, bears, snakes, deer, elephants, and many other jungle animals. In this age of Kali, sannyas is forbidden for ordinary men. One who changes a dress to make propaganda is a different man from the original ideal sannyasi. Actually, from the Varnashram perspective, one who does Nishkam Karma Yoga and perfects Nishkam Karma Yoga, he is qualified to take sannyas. So that is forbidden in Kali Yuga because Varnashram is no more there. But sannyas for preaching, that is not forbidden. And that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself took sannyas. One should, however, take the vow to stop social intercourse completely and devote life exclusively to the service of the Lord. The change of dress is only a formality. Lord Chaitanya did not accept the name of a sannyasi, and in this age of Kali, the so called sannyasis should not change their former names, following in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya. In this age, devotional service of hearing and repeating the holy glories of the Lord is strongly recommended. And one who takes the vow of renunciation of family life need not imitate the Parivara Jakacharya like Narad or Lord Chaitanya, but may sit down at some holy place and devote his whole time and energy to hear and repeatedly chant the holy scriptures left by the great acharyas like the six Goswamis of Vrindavan. So, what a very important instruction Prabhupada is mentioning that in this age, it is meant for hearing and chanting, and that is recommended. And even he is mentioning that if one takes renunciation from family life, he need not imitate Narad Muni or Lord Chaitanya, but he can sit in some holy place and devote his time. And of course, preaching also is as good as hearing and chanting. So that's what Prabhupada is mentioning. Vishwanath Thakur. There were mountains resplendent with silver and gold, and trees whose branches were broken by elephants. There were ponds with auspicious waters and lakes. What types of lakes were there? The lakes were beautified with bees wandering here and there, roused by the sounds of the birds. Patra Rathe. The grammatical sense of these verses is passing all these towns and lakes, I saw a dense forest. Stamba means a clump of grass. This is something to do with Sanskrit. Ghoram means repulsive because of its fearsome form. It was a playground, a jiram of snakes, owls, and jackals. I did not have surprise or fear in seeing those surprising and fearsome things because my mind was absorbed in tasting the sweetness of the Lord at that time. So that's what he is. He is absorbed in prema. Okay, text 14. Parishantendriyatmaham तृप्तपरितो बिभुक्षितः स्नात्वा पीत्वा हृदय नद्या उपस्पृष्टो गतः श्रम. Senses and bodies exhaust. Parishanta Indriya Atma. Atma here is body, Indriya is senses. Thirsty and hungry. Trit Parito Bubukshita. After bathing in a pool of river. Snatva Pitva Harda Nadya. So it's a pool of river. Har that is called. I performed Achman, Aham Upasprashto, and took rest, Gata Shrama. A traveling mendicant can meet the needs of body, namely thirst and hunger, by the gifts of nature without being a beggar at the doors of the householders. The mendicant therefore does not go to the house of a householder to beg, but to enlighten them spiritually. तस्मिन् निर्मानुजे अरण्ये पिपलोपष्ट आश्रित आत्मनात्मानम् आत्मस्थं यथा श्रुतम् अचिन्तयम्. In that desolate forest, tasmin nirmanuje aranye, sitting at the base of the pipala tree, pipala upastha ashrita, I concentrated achintayam by using my intelligence, Atmana, on Paramatma, Atmanam, situated within my mind, Atmastam, as I had been taught, Yata Shrutam. Proper. One should not meditate according to one's personal whims. One should know perfectly well from the authoritative sources of scriptures through the transparent medium of a bona fide spiritual master and by proper use of one's trained intelligence for meditating upon the supersoul dwelling within every living being. This consciousness is firmly developed by a devotee who has rendered loving service unto the Lord by carrying out the orders of the spiritual master. Shri Naradji contacted bona fide spiritual masters, served them sincerely, and got enlightened rightly. Thus he began to meditate. Vishnacharya Thakur. Sitting Ashrita at the base of a Ashwatha tree, Pipala Upaste, in the manner I had heard from the mendicants, Yatashrutam, not surpassing the meditation using the mantra given, using my intelligence, Atmana, I contemplated Paramatma, Atmanam, who is situated in my mind and who resided there permanently because I had developed prema. So please remember he had developed prema. Okay, now what happens when he starts meditating? Narad starts, what he experiences in meditation is mentioned here. Dhyayatascharanambujam bhavanirjita Outkantashrukalakshyasya Hridi asin me shaner hari. Now, if you remember in the previous chapter, um all the stages Narad had attained was mentioned. Anyone remembers which were the last stages which were mentioned? Anyone remembers? Raise your hands. Let us see. Which was the last stage which was mentioned, which Narad had attained in the previous chapter? Anyone remembers? Anyone? Veer Krish Prabhuji?
Uh, Hare Krishna, it was mentioned Shraddha, but it was clarified as ki it is at prema level, something like that. It was.
Shraddha, there was Asakti by a kind.
Yes, yes.
And then there was also mention of Rati, and then it was Ruchi actually, which was mentioned. It was
Yes. Ruchi,
Ruchi.
Ruchi.
Ruchi. And that Ruchi referred to actually Prema.
Ruchi refers to prema.
Prema.
Yes.
That's what he had attained. So he had attained Prema. So now, in that state, please remember, I hope I'm sharing the screen. Yeah, I'm sharing the screen now. In that state, now he is sitting in his meditation. As a meditator on the lotus feet of the Lord, dhyayatas charanambujam, with a mind captured, conquered by prema. You see, bhava nirjita chetasa. So he already had prema with tears in my eyes. Ashru kalaya akshasya. From longing, outkantya, step by step, Shani, the Lord made his appearance in my mind. May Ridhi Asi. So please remember that it's not that at prema stage there is perfection. So in prema also there are gradual steps where the Lord reveals himself to us. And in the Madhurya Kadamini, especially in the eighth shower, Ashtama Vrishti, um, Srila Vishwanath Chakra Thakur goes quite into a detail. He goes quite detail into this. And he mentions how at Prema, the Lord gradually reveals himself to the devotee. First of all, he is able to smell the Lord's fragrance, Gandha. So similarly, Narada is going to now experience some of the features of the Lord here in these verses. So let us see what happens. Prabhupada's purport is very interesting. Prabhupada speaks about the word bhava is significant here. This bhava stage is attained after one has transcendental affection for the Lord. The first initial stage is called Shraddha or a liking for the Supreme Lord. In order to increase that liking, one has to associate with pure devotees of the Lord. The third stage is to practice the prescribed rules and regulations of devotional service. This will dissipate all sorts of misgivings and remove all personal deficiencies that hamper progress in devotional service. Bhajan Kriya, Anarth Nivriti. When all misgivings and personal deficiencies are removed, there is a standard faith. Now, Prabhupada is mentioning there is a standard faith, Naishtiki Shraddha, in transcendental matter, and the taste for it increases in greater proportion. So, that is now what? Ruchi. This stage leads to attraction, rati, and after this there is bhava, the prior stage of unalloyed love of Godhead. All the above different stages are but different stages of development of transcendental love. Being so surcharged with transcendental love, there comes a strong feeling of separation which leads to the eight kind of transformations and eight kinds of ecstasies. So he was feeling deep separation and then he started experiencing these transformations. Tears from the eyes of a devotee is an automatic reaction, and because Sri Narad Muni in his previous birth attained that stage very quickly after his departure from home, it was quite possible for him to perceive the actual presence of the Lord, which he tangibly experienced by his developed spiritual senses without material tinge. Vishwanath Thakur. As I meditated in the mind, Riddhi, with the mind, Chetasa, conquered by Prema, Bhava Nirjita. So Vishwanath Thakur takes it as directly Bhava. The Lord step by step made his appearance before me, Asit. Or Shane gradually can mean that at first he appeared in the heart, and then he appeared in the three functions of the mind, nose, ear, and eye. So I mentioned nose, smell. Ears means you can hear the Lord's ankle bells, and eyes means you can see him. So that I could experience the fragrance of his body, the sound of his ankle bells, and the beauty of his face. So this is how progressively at Prema, the Lord step by step reveals to his Premi Bhakta. And this comes under the stage called as Harer Madhuri Anubhav. And then Sakshat Darshanam. What happened to me? I had tears in my eyes because of longing. Okay. Text 17. प्रेमातिभर निर्भिन्न पुलकाङ्गोऽति निर्वृत आनन्द सम्प्लावेलीनो नापश्यम् उभयं मुने. My limbs covered in distinct goosebumps. Pulakanga, out of excessive prema, prema ati bhara nirbhinna. Filled with delight, ati nivrata, I fainted out of bliss. Ananda samplave leena, and could not see myself or the Lord. Na pashyam ubhayam. So, one should, they say, meditate in such a way that the object on what he is meditating, he becomes so much absorbed in the object that he himself forgets he is himself merged in that object, and he himself also merges, and neither he is aware and neither the object is aware. Like that. Prabhupada. Spiritual feelings of happiness and intense ecstasies have no mundane comparison. Prabhupada says you cannot even describe such things. Therefore, it is very difficult to give expression to such feelings. We can just have a glimpse of such ecstasy in the words of Sri Narad Muni. Each and every part of the body or senses has its particular function. After seeing the Lord, all the senses became fully awakened to render service unto the Lord, because in the liberated state, the senses are fully efficient in serving the Lord. So with his spiritual senses he was seeing, with his spiritual ears he was seeing, hearing, and with his spiritual nose he was smelling the Lord. As such, in that transcendental ecstasy, it so happened that the senses became separately enlivened to serve the Lord. This being so, Narad lost himself in seeing both himself and the Lord simultaneously. Vishwanath Chakra Thakur. His limbs were covered with distinct goose bumps because of excessive prema. This indicates that all his limbs developed the symptoms of prema at that time. The phrase can also mean that he was covered with goosebumps, erupting so much that the prema was difficult to bear. He then fainted out of bliss. Anand samplave leena. I did not see myself or the Lord. Ubhayam. Okay. Any questions you have up till now? Any questions? Any clarifications? Anyone else has any questions? Yes, Bir Krish Prabhuji. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Prabhu, Narad ji being sadhana siddha devotee,
Mhm.
I mean, how he could develop such a stage at such a younger age? I'm not able to fathom.
That's what I said. It's a very, very special case that, he just by the presence of Bhakti Vedantas, they were able to bestow in his heart that pure faith. And just by hearing them, he got taste for hearing Harikatha, and then he passed through the stages very, very quickly. Ruchi Pradhan, which is called as Ruchi Pradhan. For us as sadhakas, we have little faith and we keep on hearing Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and we have so many doubts. And when all doubts are dispelled and our faith becomes firm, then we go at a express speed in our bhakti. And then, our bhajan becomes intensified, and then the anarthas, in with our bhajan, that those anarthas get destroyed, and then our bhakti becomes steady, and then we get that taste. And when we get that taste, then, you don't need to, you love the Lord, and you don't need any philosophy for that matter, to love, because, you have developed prema, ruchi. So this for us as sadhakas can be a multi-lifetime process of many, 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 many years. But for Narad Muni, that's his story. So that was, so sometimes it can happen. And he also had a past that, in the previous life, he was a Gandharva, and he was, a devotee who had love for the Lord. He was singing and like that. So that past history is also there. So, but in this life, he very quickly went through the stages. Same we can see of Bilva Mangal Thakur. Bilva Mangal Thakur, it's just one incident with, you know, Chintamani. And then immediately he left home and he was on the way to Vrindavan, and uh, there he met his spiritual master Somgiri, and then he practiced bhajan, and then he went towards Vrindavan, and that incident happened, and he plucked out his ears, and he had attained bhava and prema. But in his previous life, again, he was already an exalted sannyasi. He had already attained the stage of bhava. So from there, he straight went through a little purification, and then he was on the exalted stage. So like that, it depends on many other factors also. Is it okay?
Right. And Prabhu, one more question. This pastime of Naradji, this seems to be part of, I mean, it's part of Satyuga, looks like, because he's meditating on Lord. And meditation is,
Yeah, it is previous Kalpa Brahma. It is not mentioned as Satyuga, but yeah, looks like that. But it is not nowhere uh,
not
just
mentioned.
like that.
Right. Right. Thank you.
Okay.
Correct.
Uh, yes, Navneet Mataji.
Uh, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I don't know if it's relevant or not, but what is the rasa of Narad ji and the form of the Lord.
Narad in this life, as Narad Muni, he is in Dasirasa. It's Dasiras. That's very clear. Okay, Sridhama Charan Prabhuji.
Yes, Puji, thank you, Puji. Puji, regarding actually, I have a question regarding 10th canto. You are hearing that
No,
Kahul.
no, no, no. You have to ask questions based on the discussion of the topic. Out of contact questions, we can discuss later on. If you have any questions based on this discussion which we are having, you can bring it
Will
now.
ask later, Puji.
Later on, you can ask on the WhatsApp. Okay. But the subject which we are discussing, any questions you have on that?
No, Puji, later I will ask you that.
Okay, okay. Yes, Parashakti Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Prabhuji, you mentioned in the session that Madhurya Anubhav, which involves all the three
Harer
senses.
Madhure Anubhav.
Yes, that is smelling the fragrance by the nose of the body and hearing the ankle bells and seeing the face. So this is prior to Sakshat Darshana, you mentioned. So is this in detail in stages mentioned in any book?
That's
Like
what I mentioned. It is mentioned in the Madhure Kadambini, 8th
uh,
Shravan, Ashtama Vrishti.
eighth shower. Okay,
It
okay.
is mentioned in the Madhure Kadambini scripture.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so time is up. You see. Yeah, it will take some more time. So I'll just take this verse and then end the discussion. Rupam bhagavato yattan manakantam suchapaham apashyam sahotstaste vyakalvad durmana iva. Suddenly, Sahasa, not seeing Apashan, the attractive form of the Lord, Manakantam Bhagavata Rupam, which destroys all lamentation. Yat tad suchapaham. I became agitated from the sorrow of separation. Utaste. I became despondent like someone who had lost a treasure. Vyakalvad. Durmana iva. I don't know why this, every time this note has come here, I don't know how it is landed up. Some reason. Yeah, here also it is there. Okay. Prabhupada. That the form Lord is formless is experienced by Narad Muni. But his form is completely different from all forms of our material experience. For the whole duration of our life, we go see different forms in the material world, but none of them is just apt to satisfy the mind, nor can any one of them vanquish all perturbance in the mind. So many beautiful things we see, but still the heart there is no satisfaction because all these material forms cannot give satisfaction to the soul. These are the special features of the transcendental form of the Lord, and one who has once seen that form is not satisfied with anything else. No form in the material can no longer satisfy the seer. That the Lord is formless or impersonal means that he has nothing like the material form and is not like any material personality. As spiritual beings have eternal relationships with that transcendental form of the Lord, we are life after life searching after that form of the Lord, and we are not satisfied by any other form of material appeasement. Narad Muni got a glimpse of this, but having not seen it again, he became perturbed and stood up all of a sudden to search it out. What we desire life after life was obtained by Narad Muni, and losing sight of him again was certainly a great shock for him. Vishwanath Thakur. Suddenly, not seeing the Lord, I became roused. Like a man who had lost a treasure, I became despondent. So this is where further what happens is a very, very important thing. These last two verses we will take up in the next class, because a very important discussion is going to come. So we will stop here and continue our discussion in tomorrow's class. Tomorrow also we'll continue this discussion. Thank you very, very, very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय. हरे कृष्णा.